I used
11?
to do 3 but now I do 3 to 11.
That's crazy.
All right. Good evening. Happy Valentine's Day. Huh? However that goes. That means tomorrow you can get a great deal on chocolate.
Yes, that's true.
I asked Sean and Christina are driving. They're delivering flowers today for Marcos and Charlotte.
Oh, yeah.
And I asked if they had anything left over. So if you have any leftovers, swing by my house. And I'll meet you in the driveway.
You should have said to go to the sandwiches.
Yeah. But we'll get started. We'll pray and then open our Bibles, and we're gonna conclude the devil tonight. Does that sound good?
Yes.
Put a conclusion on him.
He's already done.
He's already, that's it. That's what we're going to conclude tonight, that he has been concluded. So, Lord, thank you for this night. Thank you for the way that you communicate truth to us, and the way that your grace is greater and overcomes everything. Thank you. Bless our study tonight as we look to your word for definition and wisdom. Lord, thank you for giving us wisdom in the times that we live in, and giving us a witness and a ministry in the world. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, open with me to Isaiah chapter 14. Isaiah 14. Remember, whoa, that was real close. Coffee up and over, Bible and iPad, and I hit that, and it started to spill. But unscathed, made it through. Not a drop. Not a drop. So last week we went through Ezekiel 28, and in this we found the origin, or the beginning of the devil and his career path. Remember, that's how we spoke about it, that his career path, that he started here in glory, right? He started here in the presence of God, and then at some point made a decision. Iniquity was found in his heart, and then there was this degeneration to this point where by verse 18 and 19 he is judged. He will be judged. Now, Isaiah 14 is where we're going to be tonight. And if you remember, we closed last week by saying that Ezekiel 28 and Isaiah 14 are viewing the same event. Right? They're viewing the same career path, but from different perspectives. So Ezekiel 28 is looking at it from creation of the devil to his fall. And then Isaiah 14 is Ezekiel 28, creation of the devil to his judgment. Isaiah 14 is looking from his judgment back into his sin initially. So remember we said it's like Thanksgiving dinner. Some people spend hours in the kitchen preparing Thanksgiving dinner, and they have a view of dinner one way. And then some people eat the dinner and maybe they help clean up the dishes afterwards. They have a view of the same dinner but from a different perspective. And that's kind of what we're seeing here from Ezekiel and Isaiah. Now, like I said, tonight we're going to conclude this study. We could spend weeks and weeks on this. It's exhausting. But we won't, because we don't want to give the devil that much time. We don't care that much about it. We'll just get the basics. No, we're wise, right? We're simple concerning evil, and we're wise concerning good. But here, what we'll see is that in these two passages, you see a lot of names and descriptions of the devil. And by reading those names and descriptions, you find out who he is and how he works. So tonight we're going to go through Isaiah 14 and see the 5 I wills. And this is the iniquity that was found in his heart. And then we'll go and we'll look at the 6 judgments that are passed in the devil. And in those things, we'll see how he operates and what his character is like. At the end, maybe we'll do some names. I have a list here of like 20-something names. I think there's 40-something names altogether for the devil in the Bible. But shockingly, he doesn't have a name. He doesn't have a proper name. That God's proper name is Yahweh. Remember we did that study? And then God has a lot of descriptive names, like Yahweh Nisi, Yahweh Sekanu. Like these names are descriptive names. The devil doesn't have a proper name. All of his names are descriptive. So it's interesting. Even Lucifer, the name that we looked at last week, is not a proper name. It's not a noun. It is a description. So when you look at his names, you see the description of his character and how he operates. So, like I said, we're not going to do an exhaustive thing and look at every name and every action, but what we'll look at is these points, and in these points will be all of that stuff. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay. All right, so Isaiah 14. Verse, similar, okay, Isaiah 14 is similar to Ezekiel 28 in the sense that it is a prophecy against a human being, right? Remember Ezekiel 28 starts talking about the prince of Tyre, and then in the middle it transitions to the king of Tyre, and then as these prophecies come out, we see there are supernatural features to them. Like no natural king is a cherub. No natural king is clothed in diamonds and 8 other gems, except Liberace. And like that, so that description of him is supernatural. Same thing happens here in Isaiah 14, where it starts talking about the king of Babylon. And then in verse 12, there's a shift. But you could read the verse, like verses 4 through 11 could apply to the devil also. But specifically, we're going to start in verse 12. It says, "How are you fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning?" Lucifer, again, is not a proper name. It is a descriptive name. And it's right there, son of the morning. Or day star. Christ is also called the day star. But the Hebrew word here is not Lucifer. Lucifer is a Latin name. But the Hebrew word is Halel. This is the Hebrew word that is used there. And it means this, son of the morning, bright star. Venus, I think, the planet Venus is called the day star. Because you can see it when the sun is risen, you can also see it shining. Meaning it has a brightness that is also seen in the day. Lucifer is this way, that he is very bright. And we talked about it last week. Remember the stones that are clothing him? And the other places where those same stones are described as like the most beautiful scene. So he has this brightness about him. And it says, "O Lucifer, you have fallen from heaven." So here we're looking at him fallen and then tracing it back to this decision he made right here. Like this, again, this point, this career path decision. It says, "How are you cut down to the ground, you who weakened the nations?" You who weakened the nations. This is in essence that the devil is exposed for who he is, and he is seen for who he is. Cut down to the ground. In The Wizard of Oz, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Why? Because he's not too intimidating. Right? And there will be a day where the devil will be seen for who he is and will say, "Really, you are it?" Like he'll be cut down and broken down. His plan, we'll see, his plan is to elevate himself. Like we'll go through these 5 I wills, and each one of them is a higher and a higher position. But what actually happens is that he is put lower and lower and lower. And we'll see that in the judgments, the 6 judgments. So let's look at this. This passage is the description of the iniquity that was found in his heart. Right, Ezekiel 28 gives us an insight into his creation, what he was like in his creation, what he is a part of, and that he is like the cherry on top. He is the pinnacle of creation. But Isaiah 14 details the thing that was found in his heart. And this is what he says, verse 13. You have said in your heart, number 1, I will ascend into heaven. I will ascend. Again, looking, I will ascend. I will go up. That is his plan to go up. Oops, sorry. That he wants to ascend into heaven. This is an interesting question here, because what is heaven? We know that the devil has access to God. Remember in Job chapter 1 and verse 6, the devil is there. Satan is coming to God. Zechariah chapter 3 is another point where the devil is there before God accusing the high priest. So the devil does have some access to God, but also there is a difference in the place where the devil has a conversation with God and then God's dwelling place. Right? This heaven, we can say, like Paul says in 1 Corinthians 12, he talks about the third heaven. And we can describe it this way, that this earth is like the first heaven in our atmosphere. The second heaven is like the galaxy, the universe. And then beyond that is the third heaven, and that is eternity. This is where God dwells.
Can you go through that sequence again?
Yeah, the first heaven is like, we have it here. Here's our earth. I don't know, South America, I think. Oh, it's more like a baseball. That's unfortunate. Anyway, there's the earth. And like the first heaven is this area. It's our atmosphere, the earth in our atmosphere. The second heaven is like the universe, the galaxies, and everything that is in it is this place. But then beyond that is the third heaven. It's like, it's eternity where God dwells. It's his dwelling place. Now it seems like when God and the devil meet, they meet in this sphere here in the second heaven. That's what it seems like. Because the devil is saying, I will ascend into heaven. When Christ ascended in Ephesians 1:20, it says that he ascended and he was seated far above principalities and powers and might and dominion. So where Christ is seated is beyond the realm that the devil and his demons are in. But also remember, last week we talked about this Satan being there at the mount of God and treading on the fiery stones, meaning he was there in the presence of God, right? So there is a distinction. And I can't say that I can define all that, but I can just say that there is a distinction. And someday we'll see it. Right? Someday we'll be like, oh, I get it. It wouldn't have made sense if you told me down there. But so apparently the devil's dwelling place is lower, and even in his created state, he was lower. What would cause Satan to be angry about this and to say, I will ascend, I will take God's place in heaven? That's what he's saying in essence. I want God's house. I want his place. I want to be in his place because he sits in the heavens. Yeah.
He knows he's in a lower place.
He knows he's in a lower place, yep. But also, he knows that we, redeemed by grace, leapfrog him. And it says, Jesus said it in John chapter 14, 1 through 3. He said, I'm leaving, and I am going to prepare a place for you. He says, in my Father's house are many mansions. That means that we, as redeemed believers, when we pass, we will be in a higher position than the devil himself. And we will dwell in a place that he's not invited to. And I don't think he liked that very much. Because it says in Hebrews chapter 2, read Hebrews 2, 5 through 10. It's like an important passage. It says, right now we are created a little lower than the angels, but we are crowned with glory. And that we will one day, our state will be higher. I don't think the devil liked that plan. And I don't think, Acts 2:23 talks about this eternal council that happens, and salvation is determined, and maybe he catches wind of it and he says, really, those little things are going to surpass me? Do they know who I am? So there it starts in his heart. He says, I will take God's place. I will ascend to that place. There is no offer to the devil of these things. Grace is extended to us. Redemption is extended to us. Redemption and grace are not extended to the devil. And he has by position or by redemption, he does not have a place in this third heaven. But we, through grace and redemption, do. He's like, really, these things? Remember, he is like the crown of creation. He is full of wisdom and full of beauty. Like the creative power of God is concentrated on this one being, and he is incredible. And then we, these little balls of dust that aren't crowned in jewels, and we don't have pipes, except for Stephen, he's got pipes. And we don't have the voice, we don't have the musical ability, we don't have the wisdom, we don't have the strength. We will be elevated above him. That's incredible. So he decides in his heart, he says, well, you know what I will do? I will ascend. I'll take it for myself. Does that make sense? Again, it's a mystery, right? Some parts of it, but also it's not so complicated. It's simple. That he's saying, I want to take God's house. Number 2, he says, I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. The key here is, what do we think stars are? Are we talking about this physical stars? I think we just did talk about the physical stars, right? We talk about his dwelling being beyond our universe, then that takes care of that. The stars here that he's talking about are the angels. And this is, like we said in Job 38:7, these stars are singing in creation. And we credit these as the angels. And there's many other passages that detail them that way. Revelation chapter 12, it says that the dragon with his tail swept a third of the stars of heaven. So he wants all of these angels to be in subjection to him. It's interesting that it does say he has a throne, and we see that in the world we live in today. He's the prince of the power of the air, and he is the ruler of the angels, of the fallen angels. But he wants the whole angelic host to be in subjection to him. He wants to be exalted above them, and he wants to take their place.
This is his language.
Yeah.
He's describing the angels as stars, but we're also referring to Satan as a shining star.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, so he is also an angel, right? In essence, but he wants to be over all of the angels. And if we look at Hebrews 1:14, the angels are God's ministering spirits, and they're sent to do what he asks. So he wants them to all be his ministering spirits, and a third of them go with him. But it is him exalting himself above God. Again, The third I will is that I will also, this is a shocking one, I will also sit on the mount of congregation. On the north, this side's the north, it says. Right? Oops. I will also sit on the mount of congregation on the farthest sides of the north. Okay. The key words we see here, right? Obviously, I will. This is another proud, self-motivating thing. The devil's pride is on display here. But also, meaning he will sit with somebody. And then we have this word mount and congregation. So what these things mean determine what it means. So he also will sit. Who is the one who will sit on the mount of the congregation? We can read in Psalm 48. This is a messianic psalm. Psalm chapter 48, verses 1 and 2. It says, "Great is the Lord and greatly to be praised in the city of our God, in his holy mountain. Beautiful in elevation, the joy of the whole earth, is Mount Zion on the sides of the north, the city of the great King." Again, this is a messianic psalm talking about where the Messiah will be and where he will rule from. So what the devil is saying here is that he will be an equal with the Messiah and he will have part of the messianic ministry here on earth. And the congregation, remember we talked about the mountain being the place where God dwells, or his throne. In Eden there was a mountain he sat on, and that is his throne. He has a mountain on earth, and this is the place where he will dwell. Mount Zion is his place. The city of Jerusalem is where he will establish his rule. And the congregation is talking about the nation of Israel. So the nation of Israel is the apple of God's eye. It is his chosen nation. And the geography matters. Have you noticed that Jerusalem in particular, there's a little bit of conflict over that city? Maybe for the past 6,000 years? Always, right? There is conflict over that city. You look at the map of the city, you can break it down by ownership in a sense, and it is quartered in every way. There's walls and boundaries and everything, because everybody claims it. Everybody wants it. But this is saying, the Bible says that the Messiah will come and he will sit on Mount Zion on the sides of the north, and that's where he will dwell. And that's where he will rule. So it matters. This mountain matters. Like geography in the Old Testament matters so much. There's an amazing story. Remember when Naaman is healed? Naaman is healed. He washes in the Jordan River and his leprosy is healed. And he tries to give Elijah money and clothes. And Elijah's like, no, I don't want any of it. And he says this. He says, give me a load of dirt from Israel. And he takes his donkey and he puts 2 big boxes of dirt on the donkey. And he says, I'm going to take this and I'm going to worship on this ground. What is that? Is he worshiping the ground? No. But he's recognizing that God's chosen nation is more than just the people, but it's also the soil. And it matters. It's just an interesting little story. So here the devil is talking about a geographical spot that he knows the Messiah will one day rule from this, and he says, I want part of it. I want in on it. I want to be equal with the Messiah. And I want what he has. What's amazing is that a lot of the world's religions and a lot of false religions elevate something or someone equal to Christ. In the Muslim faith, they believe in Christ. They believe in Jesus. They even believe he's coming back one day. But what they believe is that he will come to Mecca, and another prophet of Islam will meet him at Mecca and walk him around Mecca and convince him of what is really true. And that the two of them are together. Like that's a very simple explanation, and I'm sure I'm missing a lot of it, but it's enough to see, hey, that comes from somewhere, doesn't it? Like if all of this stuff is generated by the devil, then it would have the characteristics of these 5 I wills. Another point in the Mormon faith, I like to poke at the Mormon faith because it's just so ridiculous. That Joseph Smith, right? They say Joseph Smith is the founder of the Mormon faith, and he was a storyteller, and I think he liked opium. But it says in the end, in the Mormon faith, everybody will be judged by Elohim, who is God, Jesus Christ, who is the Son of God, and Joseph Smith. And who, by the way, says this, has done more for humanity than Jesus himself. So, it's funny to us, but also it's like, okay, I get it now. Like we get where this stuff comes from, where something would elevate itself to be equal with Christ. And this is where it is. I want to sit there. I also will sit on the Mount of the Congregation. So this mountain is significant. And there's a lot of commentary about it. You can read about it, whether it's Mount Moriah, where Moses received some instruction, where Abraham sacrificed Isaac, or almost sacrificed Isaac, and then also maybe it's the mountain where Jesus himself was crucified. So, and I'm not saying that's it, but I'm just saying there's a lot that can be said about it, and it all supports the defeat of the devil, right? That he didn't get his wish, basically. Okay. Is that clear?
So you're saying, so when it talks about the Mount Congregation, that's a physical place on it?
Yes. So the congregation of Israel and Mount Zion is where he will sit. Mount Zion is not a peak, right? Like we can look, we say, okay, there's the Mount of Olives, right above the temple. That's where Christ ascended. That's where he's coming back. Right? Zechariah 14, he's going to step foot on that mountain right there, and it's going to split in two. But Mount Zion isn't like, okay, that's Mount Zion over there. But it's most likely it's Jerusalem. And if you look at it, it makes sense. The Temple Mount is the most contended place, right? It is divided in every way. And it has so much value, not because of what it is naturally, but because of the place that God has called it to be. Right? So,
what did you say supports the devil's downfall? All of what?
Christ being crucified on the mountain north of the city.
Got it.
Yeah, and we'll get into that in a minute too. Okay, number 4. Number 4 is this one. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. The I wills, right? I will ascend. Okay. Now what this means is determined by what clouds are. What are clouds? Dust, water, vapor, right? Huh?
I think cumulus cloud?
Cumulus, nimbus, cumulonimbus. What else do we have? Cirrus. Very serious clouds. No. Okay, the cloud, we're not talking about the clouds that we see. We're talking about clouds. This word clouds is used 150 times in the Bible. In 100 of those times, it is a description of glory. Of God's glory. Glory. So he will ascend above the heights of the clouds, meaning he will take of the glory of God. And he will be recognized as God. That's what he wants. He wants what God gets. But what is the glory of God? And is the glory of God something that can be shared? Is the glory of God something that can be separated from him? No, and I think this is important that we know this word glory. I like to define it this way, that it's the perfection. It's the perfection of his nature. It's not something that can be exchanged. It's not something that can be traded. It's not something that can be shared. It is the attributes of God and the picture of God. All of this, it is who God is, and he is glorious. He is glorious. Remember we talked about holiness? Remember? When a lot of times we talk about holiness in relation to depravity. And our definition of holiness is that he is set apart. But was God holy before he created anything to be set apart from? Yes. So holiness is more than just being separate from what is created, but holiness is the expression of is expressed by the glory of God. Holiness is who God is. And that holiness, Pastor Justin said it this way one time, that glory is God's holiness. The glory of God is his holiness gone public. Public. Gone public. Holiness gone public. How can God's holiness be visible, but it's in his glory? So the word clouds, many, many times, most often describes the holiness of God. And for a few examples, you see in Exodus, when God visits Moses on Mount Sinai, or actually we can say, as they are crossing the Red Sea, what happens? The glory of God is over them in a cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. And then through their Mount Sinai is covered by a cloud. And then as they're dwelling in the wilderness for 40 years, the cloud is over the temple. And they know that God is present because the cloud is there. When the cloud gets up and moves, that's when the camp of Israel was to move. So this cloud is the glory of God. We have the word Shekinah, is the glory of God visible among his people. And then you see in 1 Kings chapter 8, when Solomon dedicates the temple, and he has the unbelievable amount of sacrifice and all of this, and God's glory fills, like imagine, just rushes into the temple, and it fills the whole temple with this cloud, so much so that everybody has to leave. And then there are many other ones, but when Christ is on the Mount of Transfiguration, there, when his glory is revealed, the cloud comes, and God speaks out of the cloud. The cloud goes back, and then Christ is there by himself. When Christ is ascending, what does he ascend on? The clouds. When Christ comes back, what is he coming on? The clouds. Daniel chapter 7 talks about, he says, you will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven. And then Jesus says that at his trial, his court scene that happens right here in Morrison Hall. You see the court scene happening, and he says to his accusers, you will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven. He says that to the Jewish leaders. So these clouds are the glory of God. So the devil is saying, I want part of the glory of God. But it's not something he can have.
Is he changing his mind, or is he wanting to do all of these things?
He wants all of these things. It's like we'll see it we have one more, but ultimately he wants everything that God has. So this is like he's going down the list, and everything that God is or God has, he wants it. He wants to take the place of God. He wants his house. He wants his servants. He wants his glory. He wants the whole thing. He wants his place here on earth. He wants it all. And this last I will be like the Most High. I will be like the Most High. This word Most High we see in Genesis 14:19 when Abraham has delivered Lot and all of the people, and he says, I have lifted my hand to the Most High God, the creator of heaven and earth. So this term Most High is really saying the the authority of heaven and earth, the possessor of heaven and earth, the one who has everything. This is the throne. This is who God is, and the devil is saying, I will be like God. But he doesn't want to be like him. He wants to take his place. He wants to dethrone him and take all that he has. So this is the thing. These 5 statements are the root of everything that we see in the world. When we have a biblical worldview, we have a biblical worldview of who God is, but we also have a biblical worldview of depravity and what is behind the evil that we see in the world. It's more than just idea, but it is this motivator, this proud, self-centered, self-promoting motivator. And he is doing all of these things today. So when you see these I wills and then you look out at the world today and you say, oh yeah, I see him everywhere. His reflection is in all of these kind of things. So this is the posture that he has towards God. Not so humble, is it? No, it's not humble, but it is proud and it is defiant. And for these statements, or for this attitude of heart, these 5 things, he is judged. Now, when we talk about the judgment of Satan, are we talking about something we are looking forward to?
Yep.
Are we talking about something that is happening?
Yep.
Are we talking about something that has happened? Yes. All of the above. So there are 6 judgments that we can go through quickly that prove that the devil is living in condemnation. You and I, when we receive Christ, when we accept salvation, we are delivered from condemnation. We have passed from judgment. We are in life. John 5:24 and 25. The devil does not have that option. For the unbeliever, even condemnation is something on the horizon. We live under the weight of condemnation as sinners. But it is still something that is on the horizon, and grace is extended to us until we either accept it or deny it in the end. But the devil is active in condemnation. He has been condemned, he is being condemned, and he will be condemned. He has no other option. And we see that as a long process, don't we? Someone asked it this morning. We're like, well, why doesn't he just get over with it already? Just throw him in a lake of fire. He could really do, help us all out. And we see that, but also once we get to eternity where God is, we won't see it that way. Time won't be a thing. And whatever he is working in us in this time, however he is creating, building us is here. We could say, well, we could do without it, but that's the way it is. Okay, number 1. These are all the past judgments. This is how he has been judged. Number 1 is from Ezekiel 28:16. We read it last week. That he has been thrown out of the mountain of God. Remember, this is when he made that decision. Iniquity was found in his heart. He was thrown out of the mountain of God. This happens. And since then, there has been this degradation or degeneration. Remember we spoke about his degeneration? He went from being beautiful to being violent and condemned. This happens when he is thrown out of the mountain of God. He is out of the presence of God, and there he is becoming more like himself. And this is not by default, but this is by God's judgment. You were thrown out. Number 2, this is in Genesis chapter 3, 14 and 15. Have you read that? Genesis 3:14 and 15. This is a pronouncement against him. And it is coming on the heels of the fall, where the devil deceived Adam and Eve to eat the fruit. In this judgment, this pronouncement against him, is something that happens immediately. It's not something that comes down the road. Part of it comes down the road, but most of it happens at that time. It says this, the Lord said to the serpent, because you have done this, you are cursed more than all cattle. You are cursed. Not you will be, but you are cursed. He is judged. More than every beast of the field. On your belly you shall go, and you shall eat dust all the days of your life. Some people say this is evidence that snakes used to have legs. But I don't think that has anything to do with it. So. It'd be weird though if they did, didn't it? And I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. He shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel. Okay, so he's cursed. He is cursed. But then the significance of this, that you shall eat dust. What is he created to be? The anointed cherub who covers. He's in the presence of God, defending the holiness of God. Now he's thrown into the dust. You shall eat dust. And there will be enmity between you and the woman. It's shocking that the most powerful created being would now be in contest with a lesser being. That is a judgment. He should not have to struggle with us. But in judgment, he is thrown into the dust, and he is humiliated and humbled that he will eventually be overcome by one of us. This is a judgment. That he would be in contention with you and I, or that he would be in contention with someone who comes from Eve, who is the Messiah. It is a humbling thing, and it is a public embarrassment of this unbelievably beautiful, powerful being who is created to be in the presence of God, to now be thrown into the dust to struggle with the little sub-beings like us. Okay? This is what this judgment is. It's not just like, okay, you can wrestle with those people. No, you are cursed, you're lower than the cattle, and you're going to be in contention with these people. That's why the devil hates us so much. Because in our creation, we are lower than him. And he has been humiliated to the sense that he now has to contend with us. That's where that animosity comes from. The roaring lion. He's like, hey, you people, you think you're going to be better than me? And now I'm stuck here fighting with you guys? And we're like, yep. All right. Yep. See ya. It's good, isn't it? It's good to know this. It's good to know. So, but just the point that this has already happened, not something that's coming. And then finally we have the judgment of the cross. The cross is the most significant thing that's ever happened. The cross is God changes his whole view or his whole gaze of humanity at the cross. And at the cross, the devil is defeated. Colossians 2:15. Remember, he made a display openly, triumphing over him at the cross. Triumphing over it, evil, at the cross. Remember we spoke about this triumph in Colossians class? Where this triumph is not just a word, but it is an event. And it's an event where the conquering general would come in procession into the city with everybody celebrating, and it was a very public, very visible event. And the defeated army would march in front of him naked and stripped and exposed, embarrassed, and he would be paraded down the road, and they would be saying, victory, victory, victory. This is what the cross did to the devil, that it stripped him of everything that he had, and it publicly embarrassed him in the spiritual world. He made a spectacle of him openly, and he triumphed over him in it. He embarrassed him. Like, read the language of the Bible. God does not play around with his adversaries. He embarrasses them. Always. This is an embarrassment to the devil, these judgments. So, he is very proud and he is very boastful and he promotes himself in this very dignified way, but ultimately he is exposed and he is embarrassed. And it has happened. It's not something that we're waiting for, but it's something that has happened. So those are three judgments that have happened. Oh, 1 John 3:8 is a good verse too. 1 John 3:8. It says Jesus came to destroy the works of the devil. Not to distract us from the works of the devil, but to destroy them. And he did that at the cross. But the devil's still operating, right? He's still the prince of the power of the air. He's still working in the children of disobedience. So there are three more. Oh, but wait, let's see this real quick again. Remember we talked about the levels. He said, I will ascend. He said, I will ascend 5 times. But God kicks him down 6 times. Right? Out of the mountain of God's, down into the dust, embarrassed at the cross. Like each one of these he's knocking him down a peg. Like he is being broken down. And he is being embarrassed and pushed down further and further from the place he wants to exalt himself to. Now, the three coming ones we will see in number 1 is in Revelation 12, 7 through 12. This is a passage that is powerful, and a lot of times we make an application of it as something that has happened, but the context is that it's something that will happen. Revelation 12:7, and war broke out in heaven. Imagine that. War broke out in heaven. I believe in this sphere here, right, in this second heaven that we talked about. War broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels fought with the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fought. But they did not prevail, nor was a place found for them in heaven any longer. So the great dragon was cast out, the serpent of old called the devil and Satan, who deceives the whole world. He was cast to the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. So this is saying during the tribulation period that the devil will be restricted to the earth. And that he has the first and the second heaven where he has access, but then he will be thrown down into the first heaven, and he will be limited to it. So imagine the concentration of evil now, right? There will be a greater concentration of evil at this point because it will all be concentrated here. He can't do anything else. And again, it is another lowering or a descending, right? Like instead of ascending, he is descending. And he's being pushed down further and further. Yes?
Would this be seen differently from someone that's not a pre-tribulation believer?
Probably, but I haven't read their view on it. So for us, we're saying this is post-rapture during the tribulation period. And it says, I heard a loud voice in heaven saying, now salvation and strength in the kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ have come. For the accuser of our brethren, who accused them before our God day and night, has been cast down. They overcame him by the blood of the Lamb, by the word of their testimony, and they did not love their lives to the death. Therefore rejoice, O heavens. Rejoice, O heavens. We're going to be there. We'll be rejoicing. Why? Because the devil is cast down. But woe to the inhabitants of the earth and the sea, for the devil has come down to you having great wrath, because he knows that he has a short time. Now, this is an interesting point here. The devil has access to God, and he is accusing us before God day and night. But in this time, after this point, there is something called the Bema Seat judgment, where believers will be judged or evaluated. It's not a judgment as much as it is a reward. We will be rewarded for our acts of faith. Sin will not be in the picture here. And we can rejoice that that judgment will not have any background noise of the accuser of our brethren screaming out. And I'm not saying that he has any ability to taint heaven with our sin, but I'm just saying that there will be no accusation there, and that God will be free to reward us for our acts of faith, and sin will not be in the picture at all. So it's amazing to think that even the Bema Seat judgment or the rewards come on the heels of the devil being cast out of heaven. And I don't know, it's kind of a big thought and something to meditate on, but rejoice, O heavens, right? Because he's gone. Ding dong, he's gone. And number two of the up and coming judgments is the second coming of Christ. This is the end of the tribulation. We can see it in Revelation chapter 20, verses 1 through 3. It says, "Then I saw an angel coming down from heaven." So Christ appears in Revelation chapter 19, the second coming of Christ, the second advent, right? On the clouds, he's coming. He kicks open the door of heaven and said, "I'm coming back." And he comes down, and all Armageddon it happens, and the armies of the world are destroyed. And then there is Satan standing all by himself. I saw an angel coming down from heaven, having the key to the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. He laid hold of the dragon, that serpent of old, who is the devil and Satan, and bound him for 1,000 years. And he cast him into the bottomless pit and shut him up, and set a seal on him, so that he should deceive the nations no more till the 1,000 years were finished. So this is the 1,000 years that he will be bound. Again, deeper, right? Thrown down into the earth. Now he will be thrown down into the abyss for 1,000 years. It's crazy how much happens in the book of Revelation, in chapter 20 especially. We read it and we're like, all right, that's the end. Wraps it up pretty quickly, 7 years, not bad. No, there is a 1,000-year reign Christ has on the earth. For this 1,000 years, the devil will be bound in chains, and he will not be on the earth. There won't be any war, because he is the one who spurns all these wars on. Now, there is also 1,000 years of procreation, and people are having their families, and the earth is repopulated. And it's amazing to think that 1,000, how many generations are in 1,000 years? I don't even know. But we like, the way that we understand it is that we have had 100 billion people maybe in human history, 100 billion maybe, I don't know. But also we've had wars and famines. Right? You look at the 20th century alone, maybe 120 million people died in war, or died by tyrants like Mao and Stalin and Hitler, let alone all of the other wars and all the other conflicts. So and we still have 8 billion people in the world today. The plague, right, the bubonic plague, wiped out a third of the population. So like, without these resets, 1,000 years, the earth is going to be filled up pretty quick.
We're going to be here with Christ on the earth? Or
No.
Okay.
We'll be,
Oops.
yeah, we'll be here with him.
Because-
Yeah, no, we'll be with him, yeah. So then, but Christ will be ruling, righteousness, he will rule with the rod, righteousness, everything's perfect. But as soon as Satan is let loose, it says that so many people join him against God. As many as the sands of the sea. Like, the human heart is so depraved. We'll see, there he is, there's Jesus, there's the Messiah, there he is, there's our Savior. And the devil shows up for a minute, and everyone's like, ooh, look at this shiny guy. Let's follow him, right? Like, we're distracted by it. And then that's where we find that we have the final judgment. The final judgment is in Revelation 20, verse 10. It says, The devil who deceived them was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet are, and they will be tormented day and night forever and ever. There it is. Exclamation points all around. He will be done forever. The final, he will be put down one more time. Every one of these judgments, he's down a rung. And then finally, he's in the lake of fire. People talk about the lake of fire as an all-consuming thing, and it's once you go in there, it's over. But the beast and the false prophet were thrown in the lake of fire 1,000 years prior, and it says that they're still there.
Yeah.
Right? Like 1,000 years happened between verse 3 and 10. Like that's a long time. America's been not even 300 years, right? Like I've been walking this earth for 40 years.
Yeah.
Feels like a long time. No, 1,000 years. And they're still there. And then the devil will be thrown in the lake of fire, and he'll be tormented there forever and ever, and that is the end. So he has an end. It's already determined. It will happen. And the judgments that have happened give us confidence in the judgments that will happen. So this is who he is, and I can just, you can read the names. I know you have a study Bible or a concordance or any Bible software, you can find these lists of names, but just listen to some of the names and you'll find that this is the character, right? You have Satan, Satan. There's a vegan food called Satan.
There was a hockey player with the Bruins last
Oh, yeah.
night. Satan.
I went to a vegan wedding, and they had the buffet there, and it said Satan. And I said, I don't think I want to eat Satan tonight. Aptly named. No.
Devil's eggs.
Yeah, devil's eggs. There you go. Devil's food cake. Love it. Anyway, Satan. So this is used 42 times in the Bible, and it means adversary or opposer. This is like our most common name, right? Satan. He is the adversary. I'm not going to go through each one, but just a few. Devil, diabolos, it's used 35 times, and it simply means slanderer. Again, they're not proper names, but they are descriptions. Slanderer. So they are a reflection of who he is. He's called the evil one, the serpent, the great dragon, the accuser of the brethren, the tempter, the ruler of this world, the god of this world, the prince of the power of the air, Beelzebub, Belial. Does anyone know what Belial means? It means worthless. Yeah. Or wicked or worthless. There's a description, I think the sons of Eli, the priest, his sons were described as sons of Belial. They're worthless.
How do you write that?
Belil.
I'm gonna have to use that.
Oh, Belia, right? No, it's a good one.
Yeah,
People wouldn't know what you're saying.
Yeah, you son of Belial. Yeah, that's a better insult. You're Belial. What'd you call me? Look it up.
That's gonna be a trick.
Yeah. So there's more, right? There's so many of these names, but like I said, they are descriptions of his character and how he operates. So if you look at the names, then you see what he does. Amen.